They taught you to measure power by volume. Who speaks loudest? Who fills the room? But true power doesn't arrive like thunder. It arrives like etiquette. It wears a smile that remembers your name. It shakes your hand and makes you think the idea was always yours. You step into a life of meetings and best practices, of praise sanded to a professional sheen. You are thanked for your patience. You are recognized for your contributions. You are looped in, which secretly means looped around. The velvet glove works like this. It replaces force with framing, compulsion with choreography. It makes domination feel like consent. You walk out thinking you agreed, because the path was decorated with your reflection. But what if the reflection was staged? Here's the part no one dares to admit. The most reliable tool of control is plausibility. Not excellence, not intimidation. Plausibility. If the path looks reasonable, if the tone is polite, if the outcome resembles your own past choices, you will nod yourself into a cage with a smile. The rich understand this. They don't need to crush opposition. They curate it. They prearrange alternatives that collapse inward like Russian dolls until every choice leads to the same door. And in that silence, the truth whispers. Consider the praise then pivot. They open with validation. Your work is essential. Your instincts are sharp. Your future is bright. In your warmed state, they introduce the responsible direction, the package that aligns with stakeholder expectations. You're not told to comply. You are told this is what champions do. The velvet glove gently squeezes, and your own standards become the fingers that close the fist. You think you chose, but the menu chose you. And yet, the truth is darker. The most dangerous form of pressure is not escalation, it is inevitability. A timeline appears. A budget solidifies. A board recommends. The narrative congeals into something called reality, and the polite question becomes, how soon can you align? You watch as dissent is relabeled as inefficiency, hesitation as immaturity, alternatives as immature options. The knife never flashes, it merely narrows the hallway. When the knife finally arrives, it comes in the language of improvement. Terms adjust for sustainability. Your scope refines for clarity. Authority migrates for balance. Friction is treated like a bug to be fixed, not a warning to be heeded. You sign to end the friction. You sign to return to calm. You sign, in other words, to accept the cut. And in that silence, the truth whispers. What breaks the spell is not rage, it is recognition. You begin to hear the subtext hidden inside compliments. You notice the missing third option whenever two are offered. You test for reversibility. If this is my choice, can I unchoose it without punishment? If not, it was never a choice, only a ritual of surrender. You start asking for everything in writing, not because you distrust people, but because you distrust fog. Paper is the enemy of ambiguity, and ambiguity is the friend of hidden power. But what if, instead of confronting the glove, you made it work for you? You learn to present your decisions as the path of least resistance for them. You frame your boundaries as the most reasonable route to their stated goals. You praise strategically before you refuse, because the human brain hears softness as truth and reacts to sharpness as threat. You don't argue optics, you curate optics. You widen the frame so new alternatives can breathe. You make the inevitable less inevitable by introducing a patient delay, a written review, a due diligence that forces the knife to show itself. The awakening is not dramatic. It is quiet. The air tastes different. You no longer translate politeness into safety. You stop mistaking calm for consent. You look past tone to structure, past smiles to setups, past alignment to who writes the terms you're aligning to. And when you see the knife beneath the glove, you don't swing wildly. You simply step aside and let inevitability miss. And in that silence, the truth whispers. You are not invited to power. Power is not a room, it is a pattern. Learn the pattern and the glove cannot hold you. Learn the pattern and you will smile back without extending your wrist. You were taught that price is truth, that markets like weather arise from nature and settle on fairness. But price is a story with a number at the end, and those who profit most write the story first. Before the object, there is the myth. A founder's legend, a limited run, an origin tied to prestige, geography, bloodline. The mouth of the myth speaks softly. Exclusive, premium, heritage. The words don't describe the item. They describe the buyer, who they will become after paying. The altar is prepared long before the sacrifice of cash. But what if value is not discovered, only staged? Here's the part no one dares to admit. Scarcity can be engineered, and meaning can be assembled from spare parts of culture. A numbered certificate converts, or dinery into sacred. An invitation-only release converts waiting into status. A public auction converts envy into proof. It's not the object that becomes valuable, it's disbelief that becomes expensive. To doubt the object is to risk exile from the circle that understands. And in that silence, the truth whispers. The rich do not argue utility. They weaponize narrative. They place the object in a gallery of symbols that quiver in the mind: lineage, risk, breakthrough, taste. They hire interpreters, critics, influencers, analysts, who will translate the story into social currency. The crowd then pays for membership in a feeling. They don't buy watch, wine, or painting. They buy congratulations from people they want to resemble. But what if this machinery could be seen, named, and neutralized? You begin to track incentives. Who benefits if belief rises? Who earns if faith is maintained? You perform a simple test. Remove labels, backstory, and ceremony. What remains? If the thing cannot survive without costume, it is costume all the way down. You breathe. The spell loosens. Price falls from revelation to negotiation. And yet, the truth is darker. Myth, once capitalized, becomes infrastructure. Secondary markets echo the story forward. History, poorly checked, hardens into law. Metrics such as floor price, waitlist length, and media impressions give the myth steel bones that outlive its authors. The market forgets the hoax because the prophets remember the lie. Sensible people, afraid of appearing naive, salute what they privately doubt. And in that silence, the truth whispers. If you must operate inside this theater, learn to mint your own smoke. You do not deceive. You contextualize. You choose symbols that reflect real virtues: craft, reliability, risk managed with transparency. You anchor value to guarantees you can measure and enforce. You present scarcity that is rational, supply constrained by quality, not hype. You refuse the cheap glue of envy and assemble value from clarity, warranties that hold, standards that don't move, proof that doesn't vanish. But what if you chose a radical line: buy utility, rent prestige? You let others pay for the myth. You borrow its signal briefly when it serves a strategy, then return it before it eats your soul. You build a portfolio not of famous names but of dependable engines. You treat status as a tool, not a home. When tempted by spectacle, you ask, what problem does this solve that a simpler thing cannot? If the answer is reputation, then the purchase is theater, not power. And in that silence, the truth whispers. Value is not out there, waiting beneath a rock. Value is a story, stabilized by proof, strengthened by time, and degraded by neediness. Become the kind of person who does not need the story, and you will see the numbers more clearly. Become the kind of person who can write a better story, grounded, durable, honest, and the numbers will follow you. Your calendar looks full, yet your life feels rented. Balances, subscriptions, scorecards. Every ping invites you into a corridor where urgency replaces thought. You chase streaks that reset daily, metrics that move the goal when you approach it. You sense the leash, but it has no hand at the other end. Only terms, only penalties, only support. Debt enters your life as opportunity. Start now, pay later. Keep up, pay forever. The architecture is elegant. Desire draws the line, shame tightens it. When you miss a payment, the world doesn't scold. It adjusts your score and lets the algorithm tell your future landlords who you are. Quiet punishments, no guards, just narrowed doors. But what if this softness is the prison? Here's the part no one dares to admit. The machine doesn't need your agreement. It needs your rhythm. If it can set your tempo, wake time, watch time, work time, it owns the hours you thought were yours. Desire is scheduled. Exhaustion is celebrated as grit. When people burn out, the machine applauds their dedication and offers points for recovery. You do not leave a system that praises your pain. You deepen your subscription to it. And in that silence, the truth whispers. The richest people you know seldom race. They buy time the way others buy luxury. They store optionality like a winter animal stores fat. They avoid recurring obligations that outlive their usefulness. They do not fear missing out. They fear being trapped. They understand that the opposite of wealth is not poverty, it is dependence. But what if dependence has been sold to you as community? You join platforms that measure engagement. You offer pieces of your attention in exchange for tokens of belonging. The platforms keep the keys. They reward noise, not thought. They shape your anger into monetizable heat. You leave value on the table if you step away. You are a good citizen if you never stop watching. And yet, the truth is darker. The machine has a sacred language. Benefits, ecosystem, productivity. It uses this to turn self-surveillance into virtue. You track your habits to optimize. You grade your sleep to justify fatigue. You turn your private life into a dashboard, then ask the dashboard for permission to be human. When it flashes red, you apologize to a graph. And in that silence, the truth whispers. The counter-move is not heroic escape. It is subtraction. You audit your leash points. Every monthly bill that buys status, every obligation that buys belonging, every metric that buys your self-worth. You cancel what does not serve a strategy. You take penalties once to avoid penalties forever. You trade spectacle for slack. You build a cushion, cash that ends arguments, time that ends panic, boundaries that end performative busyness. But what if you cannot leave entirely? Then you renegotiate your role. You turn from performer to user. Platforms become tools in boxes you can close. Employers become clients to whom you sell outcomes, not hours. Friends who require constant proof of loyalty become acquaintances. You become dull to the machine, predictable, minimal, unwavering. The machine hates dullness. It cannot harvest frenzy from it. It wanders off in search of brighter prey. And in that silence, the truth whispers. Wealth, in the Machiavellian register, is not shine. It is freedom from quiet punishment. It's built for that. Guard it. Spend it only to earn more of itself, more ways to say no. Because when you can say no without cost, control of your life returns like blood to a numbed limb. Warm, inevitable, yours. You imagine predators as loud, obvious, dramatic. But the dangerous ones do not hunt bodies. They hunt contexts. They rearrange the room until you lose even when you seem to choose. They do not forbid. They compress. They do not accuse. They define. A cold hand maps choke points. Who controls the agenda? Who writes the summary? Who invites the witness who becomes the memory of what happened? They create false dilemmas. Two options, both theirs, and ask you to pick your poison. They compress time. We need a decision by end of day. Urgency narrows cognition. Fear turns sophisticated people into obedient ones. They speak in neutralities, process, compliance, policy. These words don't describe truth. They explain why truth will arrive late. But what if the battlefield is not the meeting, but the pre-meeting? Here's the part no one dares to admit. The first person to define the frame wins half the fight. If they choose the vocabulary, they choose the permissible thoughts. Risk becomes anything that threatens their position. Alignment becomes anything that reflects their plan. Professionalism becomes the muzzle applied to dissent. You are not arguing facts, you are arguing in a dictionary they wrote. And in that silence, the truth whispers. The predator prefers invisibility. He does not attack your strengths. He rearranges your calendar. He moves allies sideways into roles that deprive them of vote or veto. He changes deadlines after you commit resources. He moves the goalposts and pushes you toward missing them. Then he documents your pattern. He does not hate you. He herds you. But what if you could make herding expensive? You start by widening the window. When urgency is thrown like a net, you cut it with written questions. What specific criteria determine the decision? Who is accountable for each requirement? You request paper trails that freeze definitions before they can slide. You put third options on the table, proposals that break their binary, solutions that expand the map. You make it hard to corral you without revealing the corral. And yet, the truth is darker. Even good people adopt predator tactics when systems reward them. Bureaucracy turns cunning into survival. So you prepare a quiet arsenal, pre-wired alliances that strengthen your voice when doors close, documented commitments that force reversibility, exit ramps you design before conflict. You learn to lose a small battle to expose the larger pattern. You refuse the temptation to win theatrically, and instead win structurally. And in that silence, the truth whispers. The coldest tactic is not sabotage, it is generosity with strings. You are given authority without resources, praise without backup, visibility without support. You accept and drown under the weight of gratitude. The antidote is simple and hard. Say no to gifts that cost more than they grant. Demand budgets in writing. Demand scope that matches Titern. Melines. Demand permission to escalate when definitions shift mid-flight. If generosity shrinks when you ask for clarity, it wasn't generosity, it was bait. But what if the room is already rigged? Change rooms, or rig back. Build parallel channels where your definitions hold. Small systems with clear rules and hard exits. Protect your energy. Refuse endless defense. Predators feed on reaction. Deny the meal. Your calm is not passivity, it is position. Your silence is not surrender, it is selection. Choosing battles that alter incentives rather than emotions. And in that silence, the truth whispers. The cold hand cannot grasp what it cannot map. Become unmappable, predictable in principle, unpredictable in tactic. You will be called distant. Wear it. Distance is the altitude from which patterns become visible. Up there, the hands look small. Awakening is not a fanfare. It is an audit. You wake to a ledger, favors owed, myths rented, obligations that dress as identity. You realize the cost of staying soft in a hard game. You do not hate the game. You stop pretending it's something else. You begin with subtraction. You list the stories you fund with your attention and cancel them like subscriptions. You reclaim small intervals of time and treat them like cash. You insist on reversibility. No choice that cannot be unchosen without disproportionate pain. You refuse binaries you did not author. You build the muscle of waiting, because patience is a weapon that doesn't look like one. But what if patience becomes a mask for fear? Here's the part no one dares to admit. There is a difference between stillness and hiding. So you set triggers for action. If X, then move. You design rules that convert clarity into motion. You avoid the opposite error, motion as anesthesia. You don't chase opportunities, you select them. Selection is slow greed. It is the art of saying no to 99 options so that the 100th becomes inevitable. And in that silence, the truth whispers. Counterpower is systemic, not heroic. You build reserves, boring sums of money that calm your spine, redundant routes to income that make any single door less sacred. You build reputation as collateral, not for fame, but for flexibility. You invest in opacity, not secrecy, but the right not to disclose until incentives align. You teach others how to approach you by rewarding patience and punishing pressure. But what if you cannot build alone? You assemble a circle, not friends for warmth, but allies for clarity. People who can hear no and remain. People who treat definitions as sacred and drama as debt. You exchange proofs, not promises of loyalty, but evidence of discipline. You practice strategic silence together because gossip is a currency that inflates and then ruins the neighborhood. And yet, the truth is darker. The price of awareness is loneliness. You will be accused of coldness, of arrogance, of hiding. You allow the accusations to pass through you and ask a single question. Does my current path increase or decrease future optionality? If it increases it, endure the names. If it decreases it, change course without broadcasting your conversion. You're not performing morality. You're building sovereignty. And in that silence, the truth whispers. Application is simple and exacting. You prepare exit clauses before entry. You test for terms before you invest attention. You widen decision windows and document criteria. You keep a running list of false urgencies and train your reflex to slow down when they appear. You treat leverage like a quiet engine. Protect it, feed it, never use it to show off. You routinize refusal until no feels as natural as breath. But what if resistance becomes identity, and identity becomes another cage? You remember the end of the journey. Power isn't mastery over others. It is mastery over self. The external game is a mirror for your internal economy, your ability to govern impulse, to prioritize time over noise, to keep your word to the person you are trying to become. You do not abandon kindness. You remove neediness from it. You do not renounce ambition. You remove desperation from it. You do not stop loving people. You stop bargaining with love. And in that silence, the truth whispers. The light at the end is cold because it clarifies. You stand in it without theatrics. You understand the trick of the velvet glove, the fabrication of value, the architecture of obedience, the tactics of the cold hand. You also understand that in refusing to be manipulated, you must refuse to manipulate yourself. That is the final pivot. The moment you choose terms, clocks, and exits you can live with, whether or not anyone applauds, you become unreadable, untouchable, unstoppable. You've walked through the soft rooms where knives wear velvet. You've seen value minted from smoke and desire yoked to debt. You've felt the cold hand that moves walls instead of men. If you've come this far, you already sense the pattern. Control is not taken with speed. It's taken with silence. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of selection. So stay with this circle of awareness. Choose clarity over spectacle. Choose leverage over noise. Choose exits over applause. Subscribe, not for content, but for consciousness. Not to belong, but to remain awake. This is more than a channel. It is a quiet rebellion against distraction. If you're ready to see deeper, to move colder, to live on terms you author, step into the silence with us. And in that silence, Let the truth keep whispering.